You know, this is probably one of the most requested videos that was asked of me. Hey, Mr. 4K Upscaler, what would be like for you to upscale the Avatar Blu-ray movie from its original source 1080p to 4K via Oppo UDP 205 4K player and Sony X900E with ultra high speed cable by Belkin 2.1. And that's exactly what I'm going to do on this video. We're going to go ahead and we're going to test to see how well does the upscale works on this juggernaut of a big box office movie by James Cameron, the Avatar. This movie will not be monetized due to the fact that it is the Avatar, and this is like a crown jewel for the 20th Century Fox. So I'm only doing this video for the demo purposes. I'm going to be using the same exact picture settings that I used on my previous video for 4K UHD Blu-ray movies picture settings. If you guys missed that video, I suggest that you check that video for that reference. Well, my first impressions are that this really looks great. It really looks amazing on a upscaled 4K television via Oppo UDP 205. You guys have to remember, I'm using a really good 4K player to upscale this via ultra high speed Belkin 2.1 cable. Even without HDR, I notice just how much there is color vibrance on this movie. But I do notice that the white bright levels are not where they need to be. That's because we don't have any HDR. But this movie screams for 4K and HDR, preferably Dolby Vision. I would recommend that James Cameron goes with Dolby Vision and HDR with this movie, and I can't even fathom just how much Dolby Vision is going to enhance this picture quality here. Now, it's also very important to understand that this movie was shot for 3D in mind. So you might see a little bit of, how would I put this? A little bit of blurriness, a little bit of a ghost story effect on some characters that are far, far away. That's due to the fact that, you know, James Cameron shot this movie for 3D. And this movie looks the best in 3D, period. However, I'm pretty sure once James Cameron releases the 4K version, he will be able to clean up some of that stuff and enhance the resolution, obviously, with Dolby Vision and HDR. Like I said, this movie looks great now, upscaled to 4K. And I would say this is probably one of the best looking upscaled movies that I have seen on a Sony X900E. Remember how I keep saying, if you have a really good source resolution, the 4K is just going to be better. Now let's go switch to some other scenes really quick. And this is why I recommended the Expert One Tone of Color. Hopefully you guys are going to be watching my previous video where I give you my recommended settings for 4K UHD Blu-ray movies. It also applies for the Blu-ray movies as well, because they're going to be upscaled anyway. And I think this movie, The Avatar, it's one example of an excellent upscale to 4K, you know, and it really looks good. The only thing that's missing, obviously, it's that HDR. Now with HDR, this is going to be a whole new ball game, the whole new experience, obviously. But I still recommend this movie for 3D. And I think one good example we're going to see of HDR, it's probably going to be in this shot right here. There's no doubt, I think this is probably going to be one of the best 4K HDR releases once James Cameron releases this movie, and I think he will release 4K UHD Blu-ray version when he decides to release a Avatar next year. Hopefully, I keep my finger crossed, hopefully next year we'll see Avatar, or possibly 2020. I think 2020 it's the best bet, but maybe next year, 2019, maybe James Cameron will release this movie in 4K UHD. Keep my finger crossed. We'll see what happens. But I think this movie, it's going to be a great example of HDR and Dolby Vision. It will probably be the best contender for 4K UHD release. Here's another great shot right here. I'm just going through some of these scenes just to kind of show you what you could expect from this upscale. Listen, if you have a Oppo UDP 205, this is really, I'm pretty blown away by the upscale here, guys. This is pretty darn good upscale. And this is what happens when you have a really good source bitrate. When you have a really good source bitrate, the upscale is just going to look that much better, guys. Especially this scene right here, I can't even fathom and I can't even imagine how this is going to look on a Dolby Vision, especially on my projector, on my 4K HDR projector, 155-inch. Watching this on a 155-inch 4K HDR projector, it's just going to be mind-boggling. But I think the best experience of this movie, it's 3D version. I would recommend that you guys purchase a 3D version of Avatar and use your PlayStation VR. Watching this with 3D on PlayStation VR headsets is just something you guys have to experience. It's really that good. And this is the best 3D movie ever created. There's no other movie out there that I can pinpoint other than this movie. But like I said, this is a great upscale, and this movie screams. It begs to be released on 4K. Probably the most anticipated 4K HDR, hopefully Dolby Vision release. But considering it's a 20th Century Fox, we'll probably be stuck with the HDR. But that's fine, dude. Having a higher bitrate, higher resolution, with high dynamic range, this movie will just, it's just going to be jaw-dropping. Especially on a big projector, 4K HDR projector. It looks fantastic. What can I say? Well, there you have it, guys. It looks amazing. Looks great. This is a courtesy of 20th Century Fox. This movie deserves to be in 4K HDR. I mean, it screams to be in 4K HDR, and it looks great. If you still have your Blu-ray copy, I highly suggest that you use your 4K UHD Blu-ray player and upscale it to your 4K TV. I would recommend that you guys use either Pioneer, not Pioneer, I'm sorry, is it Pioneer or Panasonic? Panasonic Blu-ray player or Oppo UDP 205. But with Oppo UDP 205, this looks great. Either Oppo or Panasonic, those two 4K players will definitely upscale this movie really good. But the Oppo here, it's doing a fantastic job upscaling this movie to Sony X900E. And like I said, I can't wait to see HDR 4K version of this movie. It's just going to be another amazing experience. Well, there you have it, guys. Hopefully you liked this video. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.